I'm Doug Bellin. I look after our industrial solutions within AWS. Joining me today is Bill Boswell, Vice President of MindSphere Marketing within Siemens. What we're going to be talking about is IoT for the industrial applications. To get started, what we're looking after is how businesses are using and driving IoT to change their businesses and drive new capabilities from things that they've been trying to do for a long time, make it easier, make it quicker for their businesses, and drive new capabilities. What we see customers doing are things like predictive maintenance, patient monitoring, fleet management and fleet capabilities, as well as energy efficiency, and within the manufacturing environment, things like controlling or safeguarding their facilities. Across the board, there's lots of things that IoT can do, and there's many different areas that people are looking at to drive their business. Ultimately, what we see is a couple different capabilities. What we do see and understand is that this is not something that you can do on your own. So AWS has built a great partner ecosystem of hardware manufacturers, connectivity manufacturers, ISVs, OEMs, silicon manufacturers, and others out there to make sure that this is not a single thing, or this is turning into a single capability for you to be able to change your business as you go forward. What we do want to do is make sure that you're not buying just IoT technology, but you're buying business outcomes. You're looking at how you're changing your business and increasing capabilities, changing what you're trying to do. Looking at things like, how do I increase either revenue growth or make my operational effectiveness better? Those are the two major levers that we work with our customers to ensure the business outcomes are being changed. These could be new business models or services capable of unlocking the capabilities. This could be as simple as going from purchasing a machine to machine as a service, looking at how do I ensure a long-term longevity of that machine by ensuring that the software is being updated and the products are getting better with time. Looking at better decision making and ultimately driving into a data-driven discipline, not just gut check and driving your business on your knowledge, but really driving your business on a data-driven capabilities as you go forward. Within this, we do know that IoT is incredibly complex, incredibly multidimensional. And again, that's why we build the partnerships. That's why we drive these new capabilities from device, from connectivity, from analytics, from applications, and ultimately engaging in change management as well. So looking at all that, that's going to go from how do we get products deployed out there to how do we connect them? How do we get the multitude of data off of those, engage with that data, change that data into intelligence, and then ultimately transform the business as you go forward. Our concept is very simple. We have the things, the devices, the sensors, and this is what the action is coming from. This is that intelligence or that data that's being driven from there. We have the cloud that's going to give you compute capabilities that are going to be far and larger than what you're able to do on premise or what you've been doing historically. What this will allow you to do is move your intelligence into actionable capabilities. And driving this, when we look at the architecture across the board, what we want to do is go from an end-to-end capability, go from those things and how they're driving in that gateway. The data is moving across and being able to go into some type of messaging capability, driving it into a cloud capability for that storage capability, for the compute needs that are there, the fleet management of the devices that are out there. So in a secure environment, how you're managing those, how you're updating those and driving those, and then auditing those and protecting those as you go forward as well. And then finally, wrapping into there is changing that data into intelligence with software applications built many times with our partners and having this as a software as a service capability to be able to drive new intelligence as we move forward. So let's look at how we can move AWS cloud capabilities to edge. Most people look at AWS and think, oh, only cloud. Well, the reality is, especially when we look at IoT, that is no longer just a cloud environment. It's cloud and edge that is coming together to drive these new intelligence that customers are looking for to change their businesses. Ultimately, the reasons for this, and it's not just a cloud environment as we just stated, but it will have that local content capability, but with the advantages of the cloud. Part of the reasons why we need to do this is the law of physics, law of time frame of that data to go from a device to the cloud, and then the intelligence to go back to that device or back to that edge capability. Law of economics of moving all that data across, and then of course the law of the land of where does that data actually need to reside. When we look at this, what we're able to do now is drive those local messages, being able to bring them down to a message broker. The action using some AWS functions such as Lambda to be able to drive what we're trying to do from a business change standpoint. Looking at how we can build local as well as remote device shadows so that intelligence is not just on that device, but that intelligence is pervasive across the whole networking capability. Looking and ensuring this is built from a security standpoint day one. It's not good enough to say, yep, we will add security to this. The reality is we have to have security integrated from the first instance, from the first capability. Edge will also allow us to bring in that local resource access, understanding what's going on, looking at those functions to be able to drive local applications with peripherals or other devices that might be running in those areas. And then looking at machine learning and how we can have machine learning and AI running at the edge, which has been trained in the cloud on your data, but is running locally so we don't have to worry about latency or time issues or other capabilities from there. And then driving all the protocols, because as we know in this space, there are many different protocols out there which have been built over the years. So we need to support these so we can get to the data and make it easier for you to drag the data from those devices into those gateways and ultimately have that action happen from there. And as we mentioned earlier, what we do want to ensure is that these devices are getting better over time. And we can do that with the over-the-air updates. Easily upgrade the Greengrass core, which is our application running at the edge devices. Now let's look at the manufacturing IoT or the industrial level IoT from an output. What we see is customers driving innovation. What they want to be able to do is drive real-time remote monitoring from any device and any location from any area in the right format from the user who's able to look at that. This could be stock handling. This could be safety monitoring, reducing mean time between failures, looking at digital twin capabilities and how people are able to see what's going on in real time. We're adding onto here the whole predictive capability with machine learning and edge AI. The data from those devices is brought into a cloud environment so we can train those models and then bring those back to those devices and optimize productivity from an edge standpoint. Ultimately, what this is doing is allowing customers to do smart factories, smart devices, and smart capabilities across the board. What this is doing is a closed loop capability of action and intelligence. We're bringing together the ERP systems, we're bringing together the MES systems, the HMI systems, and the lower level systems across the board to be able to bring that data-driven operations for our customers. When we look at this, the standard ISA 95 factory model. Most factories are built on this model. The reason is security, data delivery, and it's just the historic way of how we're doing it. When we look at the edge capabilities, we're now looking at what's going on in the level 1, level 2, and slightly into the level 3 capabilities. But at the same time, we don't want to forget about the other information that lives out there. We want to be able to bring that information across the board for us to start changing the customer's business as we move forward. Ultimately, to drive this, again, what we want to do is automate the factory floor at the edge, taking the best of the cloud capabilities and the best of those functions from there, but being able to run those as close to the edge as possible. What that's going to allow is local triggers, local resources, embedded device support, protocol adapters, and the machine learning that we were talking about from earlier, which will be done on premise or on the location that you're running. From a cloud capability, what we'll do is integrate security, over-the-air updates, the AI analytics, and the ML analytics to be able to drive new change for our customers and their capabilities, looking at what they're trying to do to change their business. An example of this is a customer of ours called Valmet. And Valmet actually makes large, incredibly complex machines. So this machine right here is a paper mill. Paper sludge comes in, rolls of paper come out. And what's happening across the board with this is hundreds of different processes that are going across from a continual process standpoint. Issues were quality and downtime. And when you're looking at downtime with this, just to ramp this machine back up could take hours. And downtime was very difficult to predict. But what we did was work with Valmet because there were quite a few sensors on here. We worked with them to understand the data that was on this machine, but then we identified what additional sensors could and should be added to be able to ensure that they were able to work with their customers and actually offer these customers as a machine as a service. So nowadays, they're getting into a marketplace of saying, you no longer buy the machine, you buy linear feet of paper as an output going forward. What they're able to also do is understand the quality of the paper, look at where tears or other things may be occurring, and look across the whole process from a digital twinning standpoint. So they now can do digital twins of thousands of their machines globally and help their customers run their business without having them to understand what the data is telling them. So they're offering this as a service, and we're seeing more and more of our customers doing this. The impact is that these machines are running better, more efficiently, and the uptime actually increased by about 40%. Great numbers to be able to drive and capabilities being able to run from a data standpoint. Now with this, I'm going to hand the ball over to Bill, who is going to be talking about how AWS and Siemens have come together from a new capability within MindSphere to enable this for our customers. Bill, over to you.
All right, thanks, Doug. So I'm glad to be here presenting with our partner AWS today on Siemens MindSphere, which we call the cloud-based open IoT operating system. And as we go through the presentation, you'll see the benefits of that and how it reaches across many of the areas that Doug just talked about. So we announced our partnership with AWS last year at Amazon reInvent on one of the main stages, and it's really a strong partnership for us because Siemens, I'll tell you a little bit more about us in a minute, but we are the #1 global automation provider in the world, and that partnership with AWS as the #1 global cloud provider has been a really strong benefit for our customers. Now, when we first got started with MindSphere, we got started more in a private cloud environment, and we moved first with Amazon to the public cloud environment. After announcing it, reInvent, we were up and running by January of that year, which was moving a pretty significant product over. So we really had great success working with the folks at Amazon. So I like this quote from Gartner because it really starts to set up this topic of complexity and how the industrial Internet of Things is different than consumer-based IoT. And so you see the quote here, the industrial enterprise is the engine for growth in IoT markets. And let's talk a little bit about why that's true. So to give you some background on Siemens first, Siemens is a global technology powerhouse. It's been around for over 170 years. We have 377,000 employees worldwide, and we did about 83 billion euros in revenue in fiscal year 17. So it's a very large company. We do know IoT and connected devices, and as the #1 automation provider, as I mentioned before in the world, we have over 30 million automation systems with our programmable logic controllers and PLCs out there in the field, over 75 million contracted smart meters in the energy space, and actually over 1 million connected products in the field today of our own. And of course, when we talk about MindSphere, we're not just talking about the IoT backbone for Siemens and across our businesses. We're talking about where all those controllers and all those systems are used with our customers as well. So it's an open IoT system that can support all kinds of devices, not just Siemens equipment. Now, what you probably didn't know is that Siemens is actually one of the largest software companies in the world as well. And so it's really interesting to see the merger and the kind of coming together of the IT worlds and the operational technology worlds and software to in the form of IoT and industrial IoT. So we are in a number of different industries, and we're driving what we call digitalization technologies across all of those in the digital factory and in energy, wind power, power and gas, process industries, in our health and ears areas, building technologies and mobility. And all these areas are powered by MindSphere as the IoT platform for Siemens. Now, what makes industrial IoT different? Well, many of us are things on the Internet of Things today as we carry our smartphones around. And in a typical smartphone, you may have half a dozen different kinds of sensors. So you might have a proximity sensor, motion sensor, ambient light, moisture, compass, gyroscope, GPS kinds of locations. So there are a number of sensors built into even our simple consumer devices, and obviously there's a lot of applications for those out in the marketplace. But when you move into industrial equipment and think about the number of sensors that are in things like a drive inverter or a motor or a gearbox or a for power generation or a locomotive or a wind turbine, there are thousands and thousands of sensors, and then you string those together into factories or plants and systems of systems, and you can see the complexity of scale in industrial IoT is very different than that of kind of more consumer-based applications. And so that's where the industrial domain knowledge of a company like Siemens comes in, with the knowledge of what do you do with all of that information, because it's great to have sensors, but you really need to understand what's happening with the equipment that you're sensing and how to use that and how to build those models to make use of that IoT data. So that's why we think there's this kind of greater potential of industrial IoT. It's what if you could do more than simply connecting and monitoring factory assets, for example? Well, you can get into things like predictive maintenance, where you're detecting and fixing issues before they become a problem. And you can imagine that in a factory setting, imagine that in a setting for a train that's in service, and what happens if you can keep those running on time and from disrupting operations. Process optimization, if you can more efficiently use resources and increase production and eliminate costs, it's a huge strategic benefit to companies. And you move from the analyze and predict into digitizing and transforming with digitalization. You can then get into resource optimization. So if you can more efficiently use resources across the entire business, and that's all kinds of assets, and then couple that in with the energy savings because you're able to do that real-time monitoring of systems and reduce wasted energy. And it's those kinds of things, as Doug said earlier, that allow you to move into actually even changing your business model. So there's all kinds of really interesting potential for that. And when you think about how to move beyond that into changing the way that you build products, you can imagine, what if you could do more to drive innovation in that using IoT? And the answer is you can, and you do that by really working with digital twins, which you heard mentioned earlier. And when Siemens talks about the digital twin, we talk about a holistic digital twin, where there's actually a digital twin of the product. So the actual design and simulation of how the product is going to be built, tools like CAD, CAM, CAE, and simulation. Then you get into actually digital production, where you're able to design and simulate entire plants, entire factories, entire ecosystems, and being able to simulate all of the information that's going to flow through them, being able to do virtual commissioning of mixing actual hardware and software together as you're building a plant to see how it's going to operate. And then finally, with IoT and products like MindSphere, you can begin to connect all of that real equipment, all those real products that have been built, back into give you feedback into insights into the performance of that product or that plant or that machine that was designed throughout the digital twin lifecycle, and see how it's actually operating. And because you've been able to do simulation with that, you're not just creating a mathematical model where you're trying to detect some anomaly in the digital twin of performance. We're able to link that back to, is this really performing the way that I designed it and the way I simulated to do it? And that comes from everything from the embedded software in a product to where the sensors are placed to how it was supposed to operate. So those are all very powerful things, and sometimes the Internet of Things can seem kind of overwhelming of knowing where to get started in this industrial IoT space where you have all the complexity in the environment you're in. That's especially true. And so, we have this model that varies by industry, but we talk about with our customers that really looks at it in terms of a digital maturity model, if you will. And it's really, we see customers getting started in kind of 3 different areas. And most people start at the left and tend to kind of move more towards the upper side of the curve, but you can start any place in this process. But typically, you want to get, most customers we see get started with data-driven action. So they're doing things to improve an existing process. They're able to collect data and use it in kind of a standalone process. So asset management, condition monitoring, basic performance management. And then we see the companies then moving to doing more complex things with it, right? And getting into predictive maintenance, both basic and then into really some interesting combinations of technology to do prescriptive predictive maintenance on it as well. We get into that asset energy management as well. And then, of course, getting into working with those digital twins. Now, sometimes a company that's already doing the digital twin will start there and want to come back and add IoT into it. And of course, that's a very familiar scenario for us also. So with regard to MindSphere on AWS, what's the value of it? I mean, it really is a way to get started fast. So instead of having to code entire IoT applications up from start, doing all of your user management, using every tool in the toolkit that AWS has, we are really helping people to develop robust industrial IoT solutions faster on MindSphere as a platform. It's open platform as a service, but with our APIs that are tailored towards industrial applications, as well as still providing native cloud accessibility. So I'll show you in a moment a joint customer that takes advantage of the native AWS capabilities as well as MindSphere in their environment. We have extensive device and enterprise connectivity because, as you imagine, with those kinds of machines across all those different industries, there are many different data models that are specific to industries, and those are and many different devices, and being able to connect to them with people on the ground in nearly 200 countries is really important to have. And of course, that allows us to do those powerful industry solutions with advanced analytics. And what we're really excited about as well is that this has enabled many AWS partners to actually become Siemens MindSphere partners as well. So you can partner with a company that can bring you the best of the expertise in working with AWS services, as well as bringing that manufacturing knowledge and MindSphere services together in one offering. So the way we do that is shown kind of graphically here. I'll just touch it on this a little bit. If we start at the bottom, we can connect to all kinds of devices with any kind of protocol. It's not just Siemens equipment. It's any kind of industrial equipment or industrial related machines that are out there. That moves up into MindSphere, which runs on the cloud. So on the AWS infrastructure, as we provide that as an open platform as a service with global connectivity, out-of-the-box applications, as well as the ability to develop apps yourself. And of course, that's the top layer with what we call Mind Apps. And so those Mind Apps can be built by us. Those can be built by customers, IT departments. They can be built by partners in this environment. So just touching for a moment on the connectivity piece, since I mentioned it is a challenge in industrial IoT. There are many open standards out there like OPC UA, and there's much equipment that supports that today. If that's what's running on your devices, we've got a very simple solution with you through our MindConnect Nano and our MindConnect IoT 2040. Then out-of-the-box secure gateway that's a few $100s that plugs in, does secure connections to MindSphere itself, and you can be up and running and sharing data off existing industrial networks in 20 minutes to an hour. If your environment is more complex to that, we have options for that as well. We have partners that work as well as us to take our MindConnect APIs and actually build connectivity into MindSphere directly into the device itself. And then we have other extensions, IoT extensions that will allow us to work with virtually any gateway or any other kind of device, that protocol that's out there. that you might find. There's probably dozens and dozens of protocols that are supported. It's not uncommon to see legacy environments with lots of different equipment that have 20 or 30 different protocols that have to be supported across a company. And then, of course, we actually have the ability as well to connect into other enterprise systems and databases. So to get some of those capabilities like the digital twin, you want to be able to bring data in not only from your IoT system, but from ERP systems and CRM systems and things like that as well. And we've got that out of the box with MindSphere as an add-on. I'll talk just briefly about a couple of customer examples, one from a mutual customer and one from Siemens itself. This is from a company called Hamlet Group. What you see on the left is a really neat IoT connected high pressure valve. So it's used in things like the oil and gas industry. It's also used in semiconductor kinds of applications for very accurate high pressure, high flow kinds of materials. And those valves can connect directly to MindSphere and into through the Internet of Things. And when you do that, you're able to watch the performance of that. You're actually able to be able to compare what's happening in those valves when they're, do the analytics of predicting how they're operating, how they need to be maintained, and make sure that those stay in operation. Now, the other interesting thing about this is that Hamlet is actually taking advantage of what I mentioned earlier as one of the differences with MindSphere is that they're not only using MindSphere to build their IoT applications with the industrial domain knowledge, but they're also using Greengrass and some of AWS's analytics directly on the edge to be able to do real-time analytics of the devices there as well. And so they're able to use MindSphere, they're able to take advantage of the out-of-the-box capabilities of setting up your IoT networks and get started fast, but then they are also using the advanced capabilities of AWS to do their own device management as well. So it's a really good, exciting customer for us. They've done a lot of references for us both in our case studies as well as in Amazon. So if you go out and explore on the web a little bit, you'll find them pretty easily. Another great example of MindSphere and AWS working together is actually, I thought I'd show one that's an Amazon case study that you can find on their partner network, is that one of our own factories that makes circuit breaker kinds of equipment in Monterrey, Mexico, rolled out MindSphere on AWS in less than 8 weeks, and that's from concept to implementation. Now, this is an example of a factory, and the ROI can be huge. The primary use case for this is what we call overall equipment efficiency, or OEE. And so when you're looking at that, you're looking at getting the most out of your resources and both in terms of usage and availability. And so the factory team came to our offices in Boston, met with us in February of 2018. We decided we were going to launch that on AWS because that was the infrastructure that was we had just brought out into the field now on the public cloud, and they were up and running with MindSphere on their AWS infrastructure in less than 8 weeks with all of their equipment connected, and that overall efficiency or equipment efficiency went up 3 to 5% immediately, and the grand scheme is to get that up more than 10% on that. And that may seem like a small incremental gain, but when you think about that in the operations of an entire factory, that's a huge metric and a huge cost savings for companies. So the manufacturing manager at that Siemens plant said the fact that MindSphere ran so seamlessly on AWS was really helped them to realize the value of that and get up and running quickly with the impact of the business, which was great. So I'll wrap up here in just a couple slides. We're able to take this complex data, connect your data and your products to people. It allows you to do things like change those business models or improve your performance. You can give employees access to more information with these powerful analytics than they've ever had the ability to before. And I want to just mention the partner ecosystem piece of this, because when you're working with AWS, when you're working with Siemens, we both have great partner ecosystems that are now working together to be able to help you in rolling out and creating those applications that you may want to tailor to your industrial IoT environment. And of course, we can help from a Siemens perspective with services and professional services as we go through that. If you are on the line today and you're actually an Amazon partner that is interested in becoming a Siemens partner in this industrial space as well, we have a partner program that you can find more out about at mindsphere.io/partners. And you can see that our partners in these spaces range from people who are helping do the business model transformation and consulting and system integrator partners to application developers to strategy to hybrid OT partners to people who are focused in on the connectivity piece. So the broad range of opportunities for that. And I realize we went kind of quickly since we got the late start due to the technical difficulties, but if you want to find out more about MindSphere, a couple of easy ways to do that. You can go to siemens.com/MindSphere. There's some videos there that you can watch. There's a great white paper right at the top of the page that I'd recommend that you register for and download that will take you through all kinds of detail that we weren't able to cover here today. We have a second website called mindsphere.io that you should go to as well. And what it is gives you the a tour of what it's like to develop applications and connecting to a real virtual or connecting to a real model world out there and see what it's like to be able to program and build applications as well. You can also get to our partner portal from there, as we talked about earlier. And all of our developer documentation, all that is available for you to look at online from that website as well. So with that, I will turn it back over to Doug.
Thank you, Bill. Over the next 10 minutes, I'm going to wrap it up. And at the same time, we're going to open it up to live Q&A. There's a couple questions out there already. Please keep the questions coming. If you go over to the panel, you can actually add more questions to this, and hopefully they'll start rolling in. And Bill and I will answer those as we go forward with this. So what are customers looking for? Customers are really looking to go from just pure data into operational insight. And if we look at this, this is a very simplistic, high-level area of how customers do this. You go from ingesting the data from an edge application, edge capability, into storing of that information, analyzing that data, and hopefully consuming and acting upon that data as you go forward. So as we talked about, there's lots of ways to do this. This could be done through just a pure play or through the applications that we were talking about with MindSphere. And it's really a decision that customers see, and we see this happening more and more across the board with this. What we're working with customers is to help them scope out a business outcome. Look at what is a business change that they're looking at. Is it predictive maintenance? Is it better efficiency? Is it quality or other capabilities from there? We then, with ourselves and our partners, help prove that in a proof of concept. Going from that proof of concept to prove that it works, that we can do what we say we're doing, but it's also proving that it's actually changing their business and moving their business outcomes to a completely new level. Once it's been proven, we want to move that into live action, move that into the full capabilities of the operations of the business as we move forward. So with that, very quick and easy from that standpoint, exactly what Bill said. Reach out to us, we can help with that. I'm going to open it up to questions, but right now there's a couple questions out there. Bill, I'm going to put the first one to you, where it asks about how do we look at this from, I just lost it. What are some of the IoT use cases that you're seeing out there? We talked about predictive maintenance. We talked about a few of the other ones. What else are you seeing that's that customers are asking for?
Yeah, and I think I see a couple of other questions coming in too that I'll try and combine a couple of the answers here, Doug, in how I talk about this. So obviously a lot of people get started with condition monitoring. They move into kind of just asset transparency, alarming, alerting, taking action, moving into the kind of predictive maintenance space, and being able to do things with machine learning and AI and working with time series data. And I'll couple this in with one of the questions that came in that talked about, what are some of the additional features that MindSphere brings on top of AWS IoT, and part of this is that you don't have to build it all yourself. You know, I mentioned that we rolled this out at Amazon reInvent last year, and Steve Bashada was on stage talking about this with the partner network, and Andy Jassy came up afterwards, and Andy said very similar to what Doug said, that you know, Amazon has this really super rich set of services and tools, but you do have to build things yourself with them in application. Of course, there's partners that can help do that, but what was needed was kind of the easy button. And so that's one way to kind of think of what we're doing to help you jumpstart in IoT or industrial IoT with MindSphere, is that, you know, we use over 40 different services underneath of MindSphere in terms of Amazon services in building out on that. And that's 40 different services into these application spaces that you don't have to recreate the wheel for yourself to get started with. You can get started immediately with applications and with data models and mixing in where you want to use the AWS tools directly. But it's really that advantage of bringing those industrial data models, those industrial APIs that kind of bring things up to a higher level for you to create applications in this kind of space on these kind of assets, and then you know, while still being able to if you want to mix with the other service kinds of things like the Greengrass and some of the IoT analytics. So it's really sort of the balance between how much do you want to build yourself and how much do you want to use kind of out of the box. So hopefully that answered your question, Doug.
Yeah, that's perfect. And it also does help with one of the other questions that popped up around how do you, where's that one? Let me grab that one. It was to do with time to value or value of that market. So if we think about businesses right now, they really want to get that time to value very quickly. And as you rightly stated, what Siemens MindSphere is going to do is allow this to be installed very quickly, not have to be customized and worked out, and start seeing value very quickly. Versus if you build it on your own, you do have to build your models, you have to build everything. So we see this as a great way to help customers get into it, start it, and drive it as we go forward. There was a question from Jonas Winter that asked about how do you determine the value of predictive maintenance? And typically what we will do is work with customers to understand the cost of downtime. And there are some industrial standards out there. If we look at the auto industry, they state that the number is roughly $22,000 per minute because they produce about a car per minute, and the average car size is that standpoint. So the reality is what we'll do is work with customers, help them understand the cost of downtime per minute, and then put that into their OEE calculation. Take that from a capability standpoint, and then show them that hours or days or minutes of uptime will give them this type of value as they go forward. Now, of course, that's never 100% right, but those are numbers that we work with our customers from an evaluation standpoint.
So Doug, there's maybe one other question that came in that I could address here. This question came in, you know, kind of on top of the previous question is, so is MindSphere IoT alone and not complete, but needs to be complemented by AWS IoT? And the answer to that is no. So MindSphere is a complete system. You know, we're using infrastructure as a service from Amazon. We're using all those 40 different services under the hood of MindSphere to be able to deliver MindSphere on the Amazon cloud. But actually underneath of MindSphere, IoT analytics is not one of those services that we use directly. So we, because of the complexity of the data models in the industrial space, we build our own data models out and do our own connectivity with that. Now, having said that, you saw the example of a customer like Hamlet that wants to do other kinds of things at the edge and do some things with IoT analytics there as well. And so they can do that in their MindSphere environment because we keep the accessibility to the Amazon edge, but MindSphere itself is not built on Amazon's IoT. It uses all the other infrastructure as a service capabilities.
Yep, and I think there's also a related one to that, which is AWS IoT alone sufficient for industrial IoT? And yes, part of it is you can build a lot of these capabilities, but we don't make gateways. We don't make the chips. We don't make some of the other capabilities that make that end-to-end ingest to integration standpoint. So there are a few other questions out there, but we are starting to run out of time. Now remember a couple things. This will be posted as a webinar for you to be able to share, to be able to review, to be able to ask more questions on as you go forward. The handout is available for you right now. For those questions we did not get to, we will answer those and post them, as well as email everybody on these. With that, thank you very much for your time today, and looking forward to hearing more success about IoT in the industrial space moving forward.